John Gilroy here. Data collection is not limited to data centers anymore. Today, breaking through the walls of the data center and entering the world of the edge, the tactical edge. Hit the music, Manny.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, where industry leaders share insights on innovation with a focus on reducing cost and improving security for federal technology. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today, world-famous Dave Rubal, Senior Technical Business Development Manager, Amazon Web Services, U.S. Federal. Ladies and gentlemen, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that we are recording this from Monk's Barbecue in lovely downtown Purcellville, Virginia. Okay, Dave. Well, I teased the opening there about data, and I think there's data all over the places. In fact, there's a podcast in town called Feds at the Edge, and it's dedicated to just this whole idea of edge computing and bringing edge computing into the federal government. So I just want to jump in with you and do this interview because an article from IDC kind of caught my eye, and when they start using these numbers, I get dazzled by the big numbers. And I'll give you some numbers, and maybe you can explain some of these. The IDC in this report, it says that data going forward, 75% of data collection will be at the edge. And so it's everywhere. So let's, expand on this a little bit. What does this all mean?
And so in that report, and really broadly across the board, at the edge, as it's defined, is basically that location that is where the operator is. Where, in the case of the military or defense, it would be where the warfighter is. In the past, data was provided to those operators at the edge. But today, with technology innovations and the need for more information to be able to make better informed decisions at that level, there's many ways for data to be created at the edge that can be useful to that operator. A good example of that data would be unstructured data that would be created and leveraged by imagery, by videos, by IoT sensors or any type of sensor that would be present, as well as machine data that would be relevant to be able to make that particular action by that operator more relevant. And today, with the strategy of leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning, using that data to train the machine learning models, so the decision making in terms of probability can be much higher. And so all that in the past has had to happen upstream with data science teams and analysts that would be centrally located. And by the time you had the ask that would come from the edge to the analyst teams, then back to the edge, time passes. So the whole goal is to focus on eliminating latency, dropping that latency from time to decision. And also, with all of these sources now creating data at the edge, that large amount of data that is predicted, it's an ongoing thing. And so if you think about in terms of the past, all the data that's ever been created up to this point today, a wide variety of data sources. But this prediction, and based on these technology trends and based on the information that they provide, will drastically and is drastically changing the landscape in terms of managing this amount of data and making it useful.
Okay, let's kind of build backwards here. So we got the word edge defined. Let's say a warfighter somewhere, instead of waiting for data, they can have the data right in front of them and use that. So let's go a step back to the hybrid edge. Mm-hmm. So by a hybrid edge, you mean several different clouds, different types of clouds. What do you mean by a hybrid edge?
Yeah, so great call out. The edge is, as we define the edge, it can be an individual location where there's one operator. It can be a joint location where there's multiple operators that all are sharing resources. But at the same time, that edge location may be a combination of connected services, actually having connection back into a network, back into a cloud, in the military and actually broadly across the federal space, Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, some of these tactical missions, those operate very much the same. And they may not always have connectivity based on difficult, contested situations where they're at. Network connectivity may be present, only present for a period of time, or not at all. So that's that edge, operational edge space. From a hybrid perspective, as I said earlier, what hybrid means is you get the best of both worlds. Hybrid means that you can leverage the local compute and storage capability on the premise where you're at, but also be able to leverage the cloud services that are further upstream. So in this movement to be able to do more with less, looking at compute and storage resources instead of having and building massive data centers themselves, customers are looking to be able to have it both ways. Leverage cloud services, get the efficiencies of scale and flexibility and agility, but at the same time have some of that data present on premise to be able to leverage locally for low latency or data residency requirements.
Okay, we were building from the back, so we have the word edge defined. We have the word hybrid defined. Now, there was an incident in East Palestine, Ohio last year. They were built sensors, and maybe that was an edge, maybe that was a hybrid edge. We don't really know. But if we go downtown and go to the Pentagon, it has to be secure. So we build this, so we have to have a secure hybrid edge. So putting all the pieces of the puzzle together for the folks at the DoD, is that right?
Yes. And security, for all intent purposes, is not a vertical; it's a horizontal. And security at however the network services are being accessed or leveraged is key. At AWS, it's job one for all of us in the way that our region infrastructures are built and the services that we offer, right through the applications and services that are provided to our customers broadly across the U.S. federal market. But now, when we start extending those services outside of the data center, now out to, say, a customer's data center or this edge, operational and tactical edge, security has to be a part of it. There's physical security as considerations. There's application security considerations. There's information security and data protection that's part of that. And we have to assume that any location, any edge location, depending upon the mission, depending upon its use, it may operate for a period of time and then be totally disconnected for a period of time. So some of that data may have to be backed up, protected in some way, and then be able to be restored back to bare metal whenever the particular mission is re-enabled at a new location.
Our next guest is going to be Paul Smith from Rancher, and they recently had a press release where they're partnering with a company called Kratos on ground station communications. So what this means is, Dave, you got a new edge. And the edge is way over your head. Look straight up. It's way over your head, isn't it? And so guess what? All of a sudden, you have thousands of things out in space communicating to the DoD and have to make it's more problems, isn't
it? So the edge, as it's defined, as we were talking about here, has a lot of possibilities. Ground-based systems, mobile systems, some partially mobile, some partially fixed, but space systems offer new opportunities in terms of increasing information, increasing intelligence, and then being able to leverage that with the rest of the decision making that happens in a mission case. So it's really, John, to the point I was making earlier. You want the best of both worlds. You want to be able to gather that data in a real-time fashion, be able to make that decision, eliminate the noise, get to the anomalies, and then act appropriately. We see we're having several conversations with customers in the federal space around physical building security and things like border management. Leveraging all of these systems to be able to bring in data and have a better decision made based on the action.
Physical business security. As you can hear from the background, we're recording this at Monk's Barbecue in lovely downtown Percival, Virginia. And I'm sure they have some kind of camera outside, and people want to seal the ribs or something. I don't know. But I imagine that the retention policy here is not, maybe important. However, get in her car again, go back down to the Pentagon, I would imagine that there's physical security and specific retention requirements for videos. And sitting there with a piece of paper and a whiteboard, but wait a minute, this is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and mountains of data gets built up. It's almost a job just managing the data from all these video feeds. And so what about retention?
And so the notion here is store and forward. So if I need to be able to capture that data here, maybe the manager of this particular restaurant would benefit from capturing that data and then making a decision based on what that video is providing. The same would apply for government operation in terms of ingesting data, having a capability in both storage, local storage, and leveraging the scale of cloud storage. From a machine learning and analytics perspective, and particularly with upstream data science teams, it's helpful to look at data that may not be interesting to the operator at the time that it's collected, but over a longer period of time, it may be more interesting. Things like time series analysis in data analytics and machine learning may point out different patterns that weren't necessarily observed at that time. So that data becomes very important. And the modern way that data is managed and then protected is through something like a data lake that would ingest that data in the cloud, store it on Amazon S3, and be able to make that democratized data available to all of the consumers of that data, your data science teams, your analytics teams, the executives that would be looking at this data from a mission perspective.
Well, if you're listening to this podcast and you are eating some barbecue and you want to pursue this more, you can go to aws.amazon.com and search Tactical Edge and get all kinds of information about the secure hybrid edge. Well, let me bring up a sensitive subject with me, aging out. I'm a lot older than you. You're just a young puppy there, Dave. So what about when data ages out? I mean, if you collect data from 2013, it could have a whole lot of validity. It's important. But, for example, cybersecurity threat information from 10 years ago might not be appropriate to even pay for storage. And so retention rules aside, I mean, at what point in time do you age out this data?
So great point. We are now, because of cyber, the advanced capabilities of cyber threat actors, we're now in the age of moving away from temporary storage of data to long-term retention of data. Because it may be that 5-year period down the road when there is an event where the cyber kill chain needs to be reconstructed. And that may be where there was a point of sale activity or there was a social media post that ties to that data and makes it evidence quality so that things can be handled from that perspective. So from a data management perspective, that means that we now need to move our data protection strategy from short-term to long-term. Now, does that mean all data? It could include everything from user keystrokes, because we want to be able to see exactly what that particular person was doing at any point in time, down to everything like imagery and videos and, like I said, social media posts and emails, and it just keeps going. It all is like a puzzle, John, where you basically recreate the puzzle and you can kind of see the clear picture. Now, in data protection, there's many ways to be able to do that. I mentioned earlier the ability to use the cloud as a target for this data. It's a more cost-effective way than building that storage infrastructure on premise. So many federal agencies are already heading in that direction, and backup and recovery is a big use case. COOP, or continuity of operations, being able to bring that data in the case of an event that affects the data center, but at the end the data is protected. So again, John, just to sum it up, we're in the age now where data and data protection is something that becomes an element of modern data management that we need to pay attention to going forward.
Okay, look up and probably see a satellite overhead, and I can imagine a satellite would be collecting data, unstructured data. I know that. I mean, it does. I mean, that's how we get Google Maps, right?
Or it's creating data.
Yeah. So my question is, what about compute? Can you consider computing at the edge? Secure hybrid edge, does that include compute?
Absolutely, John. Yeah. And so It all depends on the lens from the edge perspective, because as we're talking about, some of the initial use cases look like, I have a wide variety of sources that are generating data. I need to bring that data in, and now what? So our approach, AWS's approach, broadly across this hybrid edge space, the hybrid cloud edge space, is to bring both compute and storage together. And to have it operate appropriate to the environment. I mentioned earlier, it may be an edge location that has network connectivity back into the cloud at some point in time, maybe a satellite link for a small period of time, smaller bandwidth. But there may be situations where they have no connectivity at all. So that edge location has to be totally on an island out there, ingesting data, and then leveraging compute power, compute capabilities at the end, running machine learning models that have already been pre-built in the region and then deployed to thousands of locations, and just out there running those models against machine learning algorithms to be able to get to that probability, to get to that decision, that data-informed decision for the operator.
Well, if you're listening to this and have some interest in Zero Trust, my previous podcast was with the godfather of Zero Trust, John Kindervag. And so he had great insights. You can go to federaltechpodcast.com and type in, I guess, Godfather. Search for Godfather. That's unusual. Well, I have a question that's very appropriate, maybe the only appropriate question I've had in the last 5 years of podcasting. So, tell me about the product Snow.
So, the AWS Snow family was introduced to basically help customers move their data into the AWS and Amazon storage environment. It was back in like 2016 timeframe. At the early days of cloud technology, and really an interest now to be able to move data in and into the cloud and start to leverage it, customers were sending us their hard drives, and they would say, move the data from our hard drive into S3 or into the storage in cloud. Well, that doesn't really scale. So, and there's a lot of different driver issues and all that stuff. So basically realizing that, and at AWS and at Amazon, we always work backwards from the customer. So we developed a service, the Snow service, to be able to help customers more effectively and more broadly move that data into AWS, into S3 and the storage services. However, and to your point that you just made earlier, listening to our customers again, the Snowball Edge was developed around the 2019 timeframe because we listened to our customers, and customers said, great, now we can move data in a more effective production way into our S3 environment. Now we want to be able to leverage compute at the edge. So we developed the Snowball Edge with that combined storage and compute capabilities, running a set of AWS services just as they are in the region. So from a training perspective, John, an agency can train their people one time in region services, and it's the exact same services that are deployed at the edge. Consistency and operation.
Well, let me give you a Twitter analysis of this conversation. Hashtag tactical edge. Hashtag operational edge. Hashtag hybrid cloud. Hashtag edge computing.
That's right.
And I think
that's all the ones I use.
Yeah, those are all the hashtags are kind of over the table here, And so the question is, what is also circling over the table is cyber attacks and cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So, let's go to the first word,
yeah.
Secure hybrid edge. So how about security work? I mean, when you're collecting data from that many different sources, it would just seem, maybe I'm naive, it'd be more vulnerable to attack in transmission.
Yeah, so there is aspects that need to be considered here. So we'll take a step back to the Snow family. The Snow family and the Snowball Edge device itself, it was designed specifically to provide physical security. And customers aren't used to seeing that from Amazon. It's used to being cloud services. So this is a device. It's in a hardened case. It's not. There's nothing to maintain on it. It basically has the compute and storage capabilities, and it has sensors on it so that if it's in any way compromised, it becomes a brick. It totally shuts down. So there's a physical security aspect to it. From a data protection and data security perspective, all data on these devices is encrypted according to AES 256. Once a device is turned on, to the point where the device is turned off and the unit is shipped back. When and this is a big question in government. If a government entity ships that snowball edge back to us, because it is a managed service, we own the device. They ship the snowball edge back to us, and they say, okay, move off this data into our S3 bucket, or we're done with it, and we want to move on to the next series of snow devices at this location. Every snowball edge that comes back to us is cyber wiped according to NIST 883.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
That's the phrase that pays.
So these can be out deployed in mission and come back and be completely wiped clean from that standard and redeployed back into stock. Yeah. And we have these available in our commercial regions, our GovCloud regions, as well as our restricted access regions, secret and top secret as well.
Back when I used to watch commercial TV, I was watching the Olympics or something, and it was Up Close and Personal with Joe Schmo. Remember that thing? And you'd find about what they liked for breakfast and everything else. So here's what we're going to do. Up Close and Personal with Dave Rubal. So we're here in lovely downtown Purcellville, Virginia. There happens to be a firehouse not too far from here.
Yeah, just down the road.
And so what's that connected? What's that got to do with you, Dave? Up Close and Personal.
Yeah, so I am an active EMT with Loudoun County Fire and Rescue and the local Purcellville Volunteer Rescue Squad. I'm a driver and a driver trainer there as well. I'm also the executive vice president of the squad. Very passionate about serving the community, and it really goes back for me, John. When I was a teenager, I lived in a small coal town in Pennsylvania. I was part of a run-from-home company, very small group that had a large serving area, and it really opened my eyes in terms of the importance of being a servant to the community.
Let me boil this down. I tell bad jokes, you save lives. Is that a pretty good summary? I mean, you save lives, don't you? I know you have.
That's part of what we're asked to do.
You're just too humble. You should have it on your forehead or something. Yeah. You should buy me a beer. I save lives. It's true.
So we're very fortunate here to be part of a very well-managed system here in Loudoun County and broadly across the Virginia Office of Emergency Management that we're part of here in Virginia. But to your point, we all carry local, state, and national certifications. We're required to refresh those on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, I'm recertifying mine this year. And it's part of, again, keeping up with technology, keeping up with new protocols, keeping up with new practices, so that in a 911 situation, when we show up, we're as skilled, we're as trained, and we're ready to basically deal with whatever we're seeing.
Now you know why he's world famous. We're running out of time here. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Dave Rubal, Senior Technical Business Development Manager, Amazon Web Services, U.S. Federal.
Thanks for listening to the Federal Tech Podcast. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts.